Okay, so we're back. Looking forward to it. Like I said, first episode. Excited to get this new venture started. Are you excited?
Yes, we're excited to have all our guests and talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. Like we already said, Mr. Juan Ortiz is our first guest. Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to have him as, not only just to have him, but to have him as our first guest, because he is really a pioneer. He's not only as the musical director and all that of Mariachi Campanas de America, but also he and his wife, Bel Ortiz, they really were the founders of really kind of getting mariachi education started, mariachi in the schools in San Antonio and all that, which kind of really started happening around the 70s and early 80s. Really by the mid 80s and 90s, it was really heavy. I mean, I'm from San Antonio.
Yes.
And I went to Edison High School. But that whole scene that they were creating, mariachi education, didn't hit where I was at really until the late 80s. So it totally missed me. So when people ask me, how come you weren't in mariachi in high school? Well, Edison High School has a mariachi now. And they've had one for a long time, but they didn't have one when I was in school.
He was in band.
Yeah, I
just kidding.
I was a band nerd. But yeah, so that's my situation. But you're a direct product. I mean, you started mariachi in the 6th grade, right?
Yeah, I started mariachi in the 6th grade. I attended J.P. Elder Middle School in Fort Worth ISD, so I'm from Fort Worth. And then after that, I did my 3 years there, where I was under Dr. Gradantes, because he taught the mariachi program at the 8th grade level, and my violin teacher, Mr. Wilkes. And then after that, I went to Northside High School, and that's where I did my 4 years there with Mr. Ramonino. And then I went to Texas State. So I've been through mariachi from 6th grade all the way to the university level, and luckily that's something I got to study in college under you.
Well, yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Dr. Gradante, who was your middle school teacher. That's somebody we'll need to get on the podcast in the very near future. He's a pioneer in mariachi education in the Fort Worth area. Every town or every big city that has mariachi education,
they have their person.
There's somebody that got it started and got it going. In San Antonio, obviously, it's Juan and Bell. But I think Juan and Bell were one of the first ones really to get it going. And that got other people saying, well, if they can do that there, I can do that here. And that's kind of how the whole thing spread from their work back in the 1970s. Now, I mean, there's so many schools that have mariachi programs, so many high schools. There's an organization called TAME.
Yes.
That has, they have statewide competitions. TAME stands for Texas, let me see if I get it right. Texas Association of Mariachi Educators.
Yes, that's correct.
TAME. TAME. And they started a while back, I don't know, 10 years ago, something like that.
Well, I know that before then it was Mazba, wasn't it?
Well, Mazba and TAME kind of joined forces.
Okay.
To start the mariachi thing. And Mazba, what does Mazba stand for?
Mexican
American
School Board Association?
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Mazba School Board Association. So they wanted to have a statewide mariachi competition. Specifically, they wanted UIL, which is the big competition organization of Texas. They wanted UIL to take on mariachi as a competitor, to have a statewide mariachi competition. But before UIL could take it on, I guess there needed to be proof that there was an interest.
It needed to grow enough in order for UIL to pick it up, because UIL, I mean, that's like Texas, Texas high school football. It's under UIL. That's a really big thing. So
yeah.
In order for it to be picked up, then you gotta have numbers, right?
Exactly. So TAME and Mazba's job was to get it to that point, to where UIL was interested. And they did, because now the UIL one's been going on for about 5 or 6 years now. As you know, I would judge that 5 years in a row.
Yes, you have.
Yeah, I took this year off. It just happened this past February.
Yes.
But I took this year off, and my colleague, Michelle Quintero, she judged in my place. But yeah, it's great seeing all these schools. So many schools. So many places.
Yes.
And you yourself, obviously, you talked about starting mariachi 6th grade and middle school, high school, and college. But after you got out of college, you actually have taken a couple of groups to these competitions.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't you take a JV group to Tame?
Yes, I took a JV group to Tame back in 2020. Wait, was it 2020? I think so. I think it was right before the COVID pandemic hit.
Yeah, that hit in March of 2020. So you took in February 2020 then?
Yes, I took a group in February of 2020. I took them to the Tame competition. That was my JV ensemble because I was an assistant director at Northside. And I took them. They won first place in that competition. So that was really fun, especially being a teacher fresh out of college and being able to go to my alma mater and get to direct there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, so what's the difference between, like, on the director side and through the process, what's the difference between the Tame All-State Mariachi competition and the UIL All-State competition?
So the biggest difference, one, is that when you go to UIL, it's a rating, right? And you know that.
So Tame is a ranking?
Tame is a ranking, yes.
Okay. So when you said you got first, you meant you got first place.
First place, yes.
Okay.
Okay, we got first place. So Tame is a ranking system. So they do put you in your category. So in, like, if you're a 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, 5A, and 6A, and then out of that category, they rank you. They rank you between first place and however many places there are.
Okay.
In UIL, the difference with it is that you get a rating. So you have to meet certain criteria in order to get a superior rating, which is a first division, a second, 3, 4, 5. It's more like a rubric, right? How are you on the scale? Are you doing very well, or are you doing very poorly, or are you somewhere in the middle? And then, and the format's kind of the same in the sense that they have numerous judges ranking you, and they kind of take the average of it, and then they give you the rating or they give you the ranking. And so that with UIL, a little bit different because they get a clinic, and you were a judge in the clinic.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, whenever I judge UIL. Yeah, because I've never judged Tame, but I have judged UIL. So, you know, when you're a judge for a certain block of time, you're just a judge. And in another block of time, you're a clinician. So you have to watch a group on stage, you know, do their 10-minute show. And after that, you and the group are escorted to a room, and then you give that group a 25-minute clinic on what you saw. Well, it can be really anything, because different judges do different things. But I usually just clinic them on what I saw them do on stage. Yeah,
and that's the biggest difference. UIL does not have a JV category, right? They don't.
No, I don't think so.
No, they don't have a JV category, but Tame does, which was a really cool, interesting thing because it was providing an opportunity for our junior varsity students to have that experience. So that way, whenever they do accomplish getting to varsity, they have that experience as well.
So at UIL, then, if you are the JV group, you're just in competition with everybody else. But since it's a rating, you're really only in competition with yourself.
Yes.
Your goal is to get as high as you can for yourself. Like, there's 3 judges, so you get 3 ones, one from each judge. You got straight ones. Or if you get a 1, 1, 2, you still get a 1, but it's because it averages out to a 1, 1, 1, 2, one judge. So that's what you're looking at and then the comments that the judges give you to improve, and then the clinic that the judges give you.
Yes.
The clinicians give you to improve your skills, and the whole goal is to get better and better.
Yes, definitely. When I took my kids, like I said, it was February, right before COVID hit, so we got to have a semi-normal, basically a normal experience because at that time we weren't wearing masks. And so that was because COVID wasn't a thing. It was more like a rumor, I guess you could say, if that's appropriate to say.
Yeah, the buzz.
It was just like something's happening, but we don't know what was happening. So there was no precautions that needed to be taken. And then the pandemic hit and everything just shut down. At that time, I came back to Central Texas, and I became the director at Lehman, and we had to take the varsity ensemble to UIL. And that was in the middle of like COVID. And so that was a completely different experience because like you said, in UIL, you get your clinic. And we didn't get a clinic at that time. We ended up, also the staging was different. It was, instead of the normal mariachi arc, it was the stacks, the 2 lines.
I judged that year, and I remember they didn't have clinics. And I never understood why the stack thing was necessarily more COVID friendly or was something that followed COVID procedures versus the ARC. I never understood that because the arc, everybody's further apart. But
I think at that time it was very strict 6 feet apart. So
okay.
yeah, or like at least 3. Like UIL had done something that they could be like 3 feet apart without masks for less than 15 minutes or something like that. And so with the arc, even though you're not that close, but let's say that you were 2.5 feet, they wanted to make sure it was like 3.5 feet. Especially because it was so contagious. And it was just an unknown time.
It was June. It was June of 2021.
That too. It was originally these contests are in February, but now during that month because of COVID they moved it to June. So that was also another time where it got moved so much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, all that stuff. The state competitions and the groups preparing. That's a whole other conversation we need to have in the near future. Get a little further into it. Mm-hmm. We should bring one of these groups that won superior ratings at UIL this year or something. Maybe bring one of those directors in and talk to them and just have them walk us through their whole experience from beginning to end, how they chose their music, and all the way to the end when they receive their clinic and all that. All of that is just fascinating for me to hear because it's that interaction, how the teachers are preparing their kids for this and just the kind of music education that goes on. Mm-hmm. All that fascinates me. Everyone can do it differently and still have a great product. So I like hearing all the different ways people do it.
And yeah, and like, again, once we get to talk to Mr. Ortiz, our guest, music in Texas, mariachi music in Texas, mariachi education in Texas, mariachi education in the national level has completely changed. Right. And so it's going to be a fun interview. We're going to have a nice conversation to see where did it start and how did it start. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get to our interview with Mr. Juan Ortiz.
Looking forward to it. Juan Ortiz is next.